everyone. I'm Kat Oracion. I'm one of the academic success coaches here at BHMT. Welcome to today's BHMT Fireside Chat, returning to school as an adult learner. We are really thrilled to have you join us for this conversation as part of Career Development Month. And today we're going to hear from one of our clients who has made the brave decision to return to school while balancing work, family, personal responsibilities, and personal growth.
Hi, Kat. Thanks for having me. My name is Sharnita. I am currently enrolled getting my master's degree through BHMT through my current employer. And I'll be finishing up in November. And I've been with BHMT for about 3 or 4 years now. Started with my bachelor's and now finishing up my master's. So thank you guys for having me. I appreciate the opportunity and I'm excited.
Thank you so much. Sharnita, could you expand a little bit more and let our viewers know the bachelor's degree that you earned and what your master's degree is focused on?
Sure. My bachelor's is in health management with a focus in health informatics. So I currently work in the healthcare field. So for me, I want to continue on in that field. So that was my first step to kind of figure out, okay, I want to go back to school. I want to start planning ahead. So like what interest does BHMT have for me or like what can I benefit from? So that was my first decision was to get a little more familiar with healthcare management because of course when you're working in the field you have the hands-on experience, but then it's also great to have the education behind it and kind of piece it all together and make it kind of make sense in real world and apply those things interchangeably. And then I decided after I finished my bachelor's last July, I kind of wanted to pivot. And although I would love to stay in healthcare, I love the technical side of things. So I love figuring things out. I like, seeing how and why systems work. So I decided to do a little 180 and kind of switch over to tech, still within healthcare. So now I am getting my master's in IT.
Huge commitment to decide
Yes.
to finish one degree and then kind of continue on for a master's degree. I love that. Is there anything else that influenced your decision to go back to school, maybe for that bachelor's degree initially? Share a little bit more about that, if you would.
Sure. So initially, when I graduated high school, just to give like a little backstory of like my journey, and just sometimes it does feel like, oh, it's a long time coming, but just reminding myself of like, this is my journey, not anyone else's. So I graduated high school in '08. And I didn't quite know what I wanted to do as far as just career or like what I wanted to study. So I briefly took a short break, just became an adult, started working. And then I got my first job in a hospital actually doing like housekeeping. So that was like my first introduction to like just healthcare in general, just being in the environment. Eventually started working at my current employer. And then I found out that BHMT was an option for me. So it had been, I want to say maybe like 5 or 6 years. There was like a long break, but I knew I wanted to finish. And for me, it was one or two reasons. One, because my mom was a big inspiration for me because she went back to school after maybe like 3 decades. Like she started at like Strayer, she got her associates, did her bachelor's, did her master's, like straight forward through, no breaks. And I'm like, wow, of course, I'm like, yeah, this is no excuse for me. If my mom can do it, I certainly, I certainly could do it. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get my A degree. It didn't have to be associates or bachelor's or master's, but just to check that off of my list because of, like not taking the traditional route after high school, like a lot of my other peers, and not really having that already done was kind of like weighing on me a little bit. So for me personally, it was like a personal to-do checklist. Like I want to do this for myself, not for anyone else. But then also my mom being like another big inspiration for me was another like push in that direction. So I think those two reasons are kind of what drove me to, okay, let me finish, you know. And luckily, I did have some credits that were able to transfer over from a previous school. So that kind of helped me out a lot. And even with the break in between, I think for me, because I thoroughly enjoy learning, I thoroughly enjoy school on most days. I know, you know, most people it can be like some days are just like, oh, what am I doing? But overall, I enjoy learning. So me getting back into the school space, it wasn't difficult per se. It was just getting used to doing the online school because this was my first experience doing completely online because my previous schools were in the classroom, you know, very in front of with your peers, you know, you're able to ask questions, it's like in the moment. But I also realized that nowadays like everything is a little more technical and like I'm a working adult now, you know, like I have a lot of more responsibilities and I have a job and things like that. So I figured the online space would be better for me, but it made me a little nervous. So, but I was able to kind of, you know, move my way in and kind of fit right in. It did take some time to get used to. But I think overall the with the breaks years in between, I think BHMC and then also my school at CCU, they did a great job at making sure that I had all the information I needed, like, I mean, step by step, like phone calls, emails, just really feeling supported. So it didn't feel like I was out of school for those off and on years that I was.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I love how, you know, your mom is a huge inspiration to you. You know, you mentioned a little bit there that going back to school, especially in an online space, was um, was a little bit different for you, knowing that, you know, you're not physically with your peers and with a professor. Um, can you talk a little bit about, you know, how you navigated kind of starting off as an online student?
So for me, there were times in the beginning, you know, when you're not used to work doing class online and you have like that first class and you have like that first professor and like you don't know anybody in the classroom, like there's people from literally all over the world and you know, the professor is, you know, you speak with them once a week doing like live chats. It was a little what's the best word? Um it was a little weird, just initially, because you don't know what to expect. You know, you have all of this information, you have like all of your assignments given to you, you have the syllabus, all the things that, you know, you kind of were introduced to previously, maybe for some of us. But you have like all of this information, it can be a little overwhelming at that time because you're like, okay, I have to do this on this week and I have to make sure it's due by, you know, on this day the discussion is due, on this day the paper is due, or like any assignments in between, also juggling like work life balance, school, personal, everything. So it was a little intimidating, a little weird at first, but I think I was able to kind of quickly catch on to, okay, this seems to be the same dynamic for each class. Like, okay, you have a discussion, you have a paper, you have some assignment due, like some big assignment due, and then you have your live chats, you have like all the support you need throughout the week. And like you have your peer, and everybody's there for the same reason. Everybody is uncomfortable. Everyone is there to learn. And, you know, a lot of people, that was also their first time doing the online class as well. So I think although I felt a little uncomfortable, I had to continuously remind myself, like, okay, you are not the only adult who is here to get a degree, who is uncomfortable, who is, you know, just aspiring to like take the next step in their life to like be better. So I think that was just reassuring myself was a huge part of it as well. BHMC and also with CTU specifically is like all of my peers there, while they have the experience, some of them, they never make you feel like you are less than them. They never make you feel like you should have known this by now. I think it's very much like a community that you have, especially when you're seeing, like I said, some of the same names in the same classes. You're responding to like the same people's discussion questions every 5 weeks. So that kind of made me feel a lot better. But yes, initially it was a little scary. It was very scary.
What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about returning to school after being away for such a long time?
My advice I would have for anyone who is considering returning to school after maybe a long time or short time, I would say one, don't let like the fear kind of deter you away if you know that this is something that you have always wanted to do, or maybe you woke up one day and said like, I want to get a degree in, I don't know, accounting. And like I've never done that before, but like I'm interested in learning about it. I say do it. Like don't think twice about it. It's not, nothing is ever easy. It's not going to be easy. That's the whole point of learning. You're supposed to be uncomfortable. That's how you know that you are kind of moving towards where you want to be. Second thing I would say is celebrate the small wins. If your first paper is a B, hey, a B is still a B. You know, like a B is still great. You know, a C is still great. You know, and I think for me, I also suffered with that of always wanting to get an A out of like every class because I maybe possibly a perfectionist of some sort. So when I first got my first like B plus or like a B, I was feeling, you know, I was like a little sad, but I also had to remember that, you know, a B is still great, you know, like you understood it. Now you know for next time to like apply yourself and how to improve that. And then also the last point would be to don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. I feel like BHMT is a great resource because you guys are always responsive. You know, you always give like all the great information. If you don't know it, then you'll say, I'll find out and then I'll get back to you. Very rare does that happen, but just in case, you know, if someone has a question that you can't answer, you guys are definitely a great resource. And just also giving great advice too about, you know, potentially career moves. You know, I had a meeting with my, I think my academic coach or my other coach, and I just expressed to him about me wanting to get into IT and like potentially like getting another degree. And he was like, you know, I'm not going to deter you away from you possibly getting another degree, but like, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Let's make sure that you are making decisions that will put you forward. You know, I would hate for you to have all this like academia behind you and like you're not like applying it. So I think you guys do a great job of just being a great vessel and a great resource for a lot of people who maybe this isn't their first degree. Maybe they didn't feel supported in a previous school, very much similar to my situation. This is the first time I've felt really supported in my academic journey, and I think that plays a large part of just feeling comfortable. Once you get the jitters out after those first few classes and you kind of get the hang of it, it's like, you know, smooth sailing after that. I think a lot of us will quickly learn like, okay, this is it's repetition. So it's like, you know, the same thing. The professors may change, your peers may change, but I think the overall structure is really great here. And I think that allows people to push through and feel like they have made a really great decision.
I really, really appreciate that you've taken the time to share so much about your journey today, Sharnita. You know, your experience and insights, you know, providing us with examples. It's all very valuable. And your stories remind us that returning to school as an adult is not just possible, it's a courageous and it's a transformative step. Every path is valid and it's worth celebrating. So to our viewers, you know, we hope that today's conversation sparked reflection and encouragement for anyone who's considering their next steps. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to continuing these important conversations in future fireside chats and during Career Development Month. Thanks so much for your time. See you next time. Bye-bye.